Hyundai Ioniq 5, it's a stylish electric vehicle and it's a popular electric vehicle as well. No surprises there. It's got a Hyundai badge, and along with the Kia EV6 GT and of course the Tesla Model 3, this is one of the current heavy hitters below that $100,000 threshold. Pretty excited about this today as well, because this one we're testing is the entry-level model, and we're going to take a look at exactly what you get if you don't buy the most expensive Hyundai Ioniq 5 that's on the market. I think that's important as well, because we need to change the narrative a little bit from how fast and powerful these electric vehicles are to how practical they are and what you get for your money if you're on a bit tighter budget. So first up, let's take a look at the pricing and spec.
The old 2 model range has been replaced with 3 repositioned variants, bookended by the base rear-wheel drive Ioniq 5 Dynamiq, and then top-ended by the all-wheel drive flagship Ioniq 5 Epic. The new rear-drive-only Dynamiq variant is now pitched as the entry-level model, starting from $72,000 plus on-road costs. Standard kit across the range includes big dual screens, an augmented reality head-up display, and a second vehicle-to-load port, allowing the car's battery to power external electrical devices. Driving range has been increased for the updated range in the form of 19-inch rims and Michelin Primacy 4 tyres for the entry-level Dynamiq, replacing 20-inch wheels and Michelin Pilot Sport EV rubber, which increased the range claim from 481 kilometres to 507 kilometres. Powering the entry-level Dynamiq is a 77.4 kilowatt-hour battery pack and 168 kilowatt, 350 newton-metre electric motor on the rear axle, good for a 7.3 second 0 to 100 kilometre an hour time, and the aforementioned 507 kilometre driving range claim. The Ioniq 5 is capable of 800 volts and 350 kilowatt DC fast charging, good for a 10 to 80% recharge in a claimed 18 minutes, in optimal condition.
So they're the facts and figures on paper in terms of the specs list, but what does it feel like when you take a seat inside the base variant of the Ioniq 5, close the door and become one with the environment that you're going to be in whenever you drive this car? Straight off the bat, it doesn't at all feel cheap. Now, you could argue that electric vehicles aren't cheap, so they start at a higher price, and this should feel like a more premium vehicle, but it doesn't really feel, when you look around here, like you're missing out on anything at all. Let's take a look at a couple of the highlights. First of all, I don't know how you feel about the white interior. As much as I like the look of it, when you stand outside and look inside the car, I probably wouldn't opt for it in a car that I was going to drive every day, or if I had kids specifically who were going to be in the car, because you can get transfer off dark blue jeans on the seat or black jeans. There's marks on the door. We've had to clean this a couple of times just from fingerprints and marks on doors, little stains we had to get off. So probably that's a matter of personal preference. For me, for a daily driver, I wouldn't want such a light coloured cabin. That aside though, the layout and the way that Hyundai has put this together is fantastic. I love those 2 big screens in front of you. They've cleverly integrated that in so that all of your control systems are really easy to use. This central infotainment screen is really easy to use. It's quite responsive too. So if you need to do something on the fly, it's not like it takes too long to think about it. The steering wheel controls, they're all pretty self-explanatory as well. I like the fact that there's a little switch here if you want to turn off the lane keep assist, which can sometimes be a little bit enthusiastic. You just hold that button down, one button turns it off. And then of course the HVAC, so heating, ventilation, air conditioning, and your major controls for the infotainment with one touch buttons. So media, nav, map, really easy to use. The other highlight for me up the front of this vehicle, visibility is great and it's really comfortable, but you kind of expect that in a modern vehicle. What I love is the flat floor through here. So if you've got a bag, you can just pop that there and there's plenty of room for it. But the storage, there's so much clever storage. There's a huge shelf down here, wireless charging. You've got 3 USB ports. There's a regular 12-volt port there, cup and bottle holders here, more of them in the door. There's a lid here that opens up a console, which is good for your wallet, your keys, things like that. You can plug your phone in and put it in one of these receptacles. There's another little one in the front here. Stuff isn't flying around the cabin. There's a lot of storage here. It's very cleverly laid out. And what I've found after a week behind the wheel of this Ioniq 5 is that it's a really practical vehicle to live with day to day. The flat floor obviously continues back here into the second row, and once again you've got more room than you might expect when you're looking at the Ioniq 5 from outside. It's actually quite space efficient in here, and it's something that I think we'll really start to see more and more of as manufacturers come to grips with electric vehicles and all of the flexibility they have. For instance, the flat floor, because there's no drive tunnel that needs to go through here, no gearbox, no nothing, so they can have that flat floor. You get 2 USB chargers back here, air vents as well, which I think is great given this is the base model, because often on the base model of vehicles you can miss out on that sort of stuff. You've got bottle holders in the door. It's really comfortable too. The armrest, the way that it's integrated into the door there, is quite well designed because it falls right where you want to rest your arm. You get privacy glass on this car too, so it's a little bit darker in the back. And then of course, you also get 2 cup holders here with an armrest in the center. And lastly, worth mentioning, because I've got a heap of room back here too, the seat base slides forward and back. And then of course, the backrest, also you can adjust the tilt on that. So it's pretty easy to get comfortable back here. And even for adults, if you're driving around with 4 adults in the car, plenty of room and it's definitely comfortable.
For mine, it's the styling that most sets the Ioniq 5 apart, not just from other regular internal combustion vehicles, but all vehicles in general. It's eye-catching from any angle and looks stylish in any company. Do you like the styling? Click like if you do, and if you don't, tell us why you don't in the comments section below.
As is the case when you look at the spec sheet, you get behind the wheel of the Ioniq 5 and there's nothing that's lacking. I really enjoy the way this drives. You do feel occasionally over some really nasty bumps that this is a fair bit heavier than a regular hatchback would be because of course it's electric, but everything else about the drive is entirely pleasant. And I know pleasant's a little bit of a weak word, but if you're buying this kind of vehicle to drive around town and be stuck in traffic a lot of the time, you do want it to be pleasant, and that's exactly what the Ioniq 5 is. It's quiet, it's insulated, it's comfortable. I like how much room is in it, and I also like how much visibility you get as well. I think that's a really important factor. And then in terms of the drive experience, you don't really notice that this isn't the fastest, in inverted commas, Ioniq 5 that you can buy because, of course, when you're driving around town, you can't access any of that performance anyway. You're doing exactly what we're doing now, somewhere between 40 and 60 kilometers an hour, tight streets, traffic everywhere, stop, start. So it doesn't matter how fast or how powerful this car is. It just matters whether it gets up to speed quick enough. It does because it's electric, but it's really quite enjoyable to drive. And the range, we're at 88% at the moment with 450 kilometers showing as available range. That's fantastic for the average Aussie. I mean, most people could drive this to and from work every day and then charge it over the weekend. You wouldn't even need to charge it during the week because the average Aussie does about 20 to 30 Ks each way to work. I think what's really good about modern cars these days is the fact that when you buy a base model, as you've bought here, it doesn't feel cheap on the inside and nothing about the drive experience feels cheap. There was a time, not so long ago, where base models had cheaper trim or cheaper materials that were used and it didn't feel like such a premium place to be. However, with this particular base model, it doesn't feel that way. Now, you could argue that around the $70,000 mark, a little bit more with on-roads, it shouldn't feel cheap because it's an expensive car, but it's still an electric vehicle, which is quite expensive to build. So Hyundai could be forgiven for not so much taking shortcuts, but making it feel not as premium elsewhere. And yet, it doesn't really feel like that at all. It feels quite premium on the inside, especially with that almost complete lack of noise. The tyres are good too, even on the freeway. There's not a lot of road noise that comes in off the tyres. So it's a really, really enjoyable car to drive. I think the fact that you're on a budget and this is the only electric vehicle that you can justify spend your money on, not an issue. You don't need to worry about that. You don't need to feel like you're missing out on anything. This Ioniq 5 will do exactly what you want it to do. Hyundai Ioniq 5. Unsurprisingly, I've really enjoyed my week with this electric vehicle, and I really like the fact that this is an entry-level vehicle that doesn't feel like you're missing out on anything. It has everything that you want, but it still has a 500 kilometer range. We'd like your feedback on that. We said at the start of the video that we think manufacturers should stop talking about how fast and powerful electric vehicles are and talk more about the practicality, the usability, the range, and most importantly, the affordability. I think with just over 500 Ks, which averages out around the high 490s in the real world in traffic, I think that's just about right. Let us know what you think in the comments section below. And as always, hit like if you've enjoyed the video. Don't forget to click on subscribe so you stay up to date with all of our latest video content and the full review of the Hyundai Ioniq 5 and all of the other electric vehicles under that $100,000 threshold. They're at Drive.com.au.